What's up, guys? It is Modern Craftsman Monday. I don't like the delay.
You're welcome.
Oh, a little Moana reference.
Little
you gotta wait.
to
You gotta wait to
Moana.
the end of the podcast to get that
The
one.
OG Moana.
Moana. This week we have.
What?
We got John from National Gypsum. And Other John.
Not this guy.
Not this guy. Another
I'm still
John.
here.
He is John. John stays the whole time. But we talk about drywall and mud. I was really hoping he was gonna give me this like innovative product that was like, yeah, this is gonna come out and you're gonna be an amazing taper. No.
You put it on and self-levels, it's smooth. You don't have to do
that's
any
what I was
work.
thinking. I was
Takes
like,
away all the craftsmanship. You should
and
do
then,
it.
Yeah, and then I was doing it partly for me and then partly to trigger John, and you have to
Didn't
listen
happen.
to see if that. Oh, well, you gave
Sorry.
away. There you go.
You're welcome.
This podcast is brought to you by Duration Moulding and Millwork. 25 standard molding profiles, 200 semi-custom molding profiles, and the ability to provide just about any matching profile that you need in molding or siding. All from a material with an unmatched combination of good looks and durability. To learn more about Duration Polyash products, please visit their website at durationmillwork.com. And
Duration.
Duration.
I like that. I like that. This episode is also brought to you by National Gypsum. When you're focused on providing the highest level of quality and offering your clients added benefits that go beyond standard drywall, Purple Drywall products make it easy to deliver projects that build trust and your business. Moisture, mold, and mildew resistant, Purple Drywall can help reduce callbacks and protect your work with performance that lasts for decades. Plus, Purple Drywall features a patented grid mark for a fast, accurate installation that saves time and increases productivity for both new and seasoned crews. Purple, the best for your client and your business. And to learn more, visit askforpurple.com. Well, first off, I love the fact that you guys went right into giving us the background. It gave me something to print out and read for this, but I'd love to, just get into what your background is before all of, National Gypsum and everything like that.
We can't get into the DV you're rocking right now?
Me? You like that?
No,
Yeah,
the only kid on the screen.
Well, I just looked
with
at
a DV.
I'm looking at all you. I'm like, none of you guys have DVs on.
I don't have a deep V.
That is a straight up
That's a
DV.
Boston thing.
This is Mike Elaine right here.
Where are you, John?
So I'm in Charlotte right now.
No, I mean, what room?
Oh, this is
I'm just
this is
kidding.
our draft
Yeah.
room. This is where.
Hey, are
Yeah.
those glass whiteboards?
Yes, they are.
My man, I got two.
It's the most modern room that we have in our office, so I figured
There you go.
I'd show you guys.
It would
little
look
bit
good
of the
for a
inside.
radio show.
I did the same thing.
Look there, and I don't want to intimidate you, but there's also a pad right there.
Is that a
Oh,
Ty
man.
Lopez notepad?
So
Are we doing charades? Like game night?
Oh,
Hey.
that'd be awesome.
Imagine that.
Just like a Zoom charades. Everyone's like, "Is this dead air?" No, dude, they're playing
Nope.
charades. Sounds like. So you're in Charlotte.
Charlotte's
I'm in Charlotte,
crazy.
yes.
Charlotte is like a crazy building market, isn't it?
it is. It's I think it's number 2 or 3 in the country. It's
Yeah.
and Charlotte and Raleigh are right up there. So there
Wow.
are cranes everywhere and residential just going nuts right now.
Yeah, because there's something with the schooling too, right? Where there's like very desirable neighborhoods because some of the schooling isn't great.
Absolutely, yeah. Charlotte's, they're just like anywhere else. Any major city, there are several different sections, and it's. I live just outside of Charlotte in Union County, so a place called Waxhaw. It's the coolest name ever.
I feel
Yeah, I
like
had some friends who like got relocated for work down that way, and I remember initially thinking, "Oh, that's gonna be great. It's gonna be so much less expensive, and taxes won't be as bad as where we are." And then they're sending us links to potential houses, and I'm like, "Whoa, that's not the case at all. You're not saving at all."
So, I came from New Jersey. Actually, I lived in Marlton before I moved down here.
Oh, I live in Medford.
Right down the street from you.
Yeah.
I grew up in Cherry Hill, so
Go to East or West?
I went to West.
All right. I grew up in Morristown.
Okay. Yeah. So
So you're from the hood.
Yeah, I mean, we had
The
purple.
west side's the hood.
We had purple uniforms, and now it's it's all come full circle.
That's awesome.
But yeah, I moved down here about 3 years ago, and I mean the property tax savings is real. I mean it's substantial.
New Jersey's is it super high throughout the state or just in that county or whatever you guys call it?
The state, but so we're in Camden County, and there's this nice little gem of a city called Camden that a lot of Camden County supports because there's not the tax initiatives in Camden. So Camden County is especially bad just because you're like picking up some of what is not getting contributed. But all of New Jersey is pretty terrible.
Yeah, I mean it was a nice. That was like one of the only selling points my wife actually bought for moving down here. So.
Yeah, and if you have kids, that they're not going to have purple high school uniforms unless they're girls. How old are you?
41.
Okay, you're a little bit older than me. I know the Cunninghams from West that were wrestlers, really good wrestlers, but they're a little bit younger.
I think there was one that was my age.
Ryan was one. He's probably a little younger than you.
Andrew?
I don't know him.
He was the only Cunningham wrestler I knew.
No.
I hope they're listening to this podcast.
Probably not. No.
So,
all right. Enough of that.
Did you move to Charlotte for work?
Yeah. So I started with National about 7 years ago in the Philadelphia market. I was the outside sales rep, and I covered South Jersey, the 4 counties in and around Philadelphia, and then into Delaware. And I had the opportunity to move down here for our national accounts position, which was for Lowe's and Menards, not the Home Depot account. And then about a year ago, I interviewed for the gypsum product manager position and got it. So it's my 15-second elevator speech for my time at National Gypsum.
So growing up, did you tell yourself you wanted to be a gypsum product manager?
So it was like number 3 on the list, but 1 and 2, 1 and 2 just kind of ticked off pretty quickly when I stopped growing at like 5'9".
Yeah, it's super interesting to me, the entire drywall market, because I feel like I was discussing with Nick, one of the topics of conversation was like, where do you go from here with drywall? I feel like there's only so many options, as like we can market some things a certain way,
sure.
But like, what's the next step for it? And I just feel like you guys are probably, that's I'm sure a lot of your market research and that end of the business, but it just seems like it like begins and ends with drywall.
Yeah, so there are only so many things you can do with a 4x8 sheet, right? And there are only so many cool features you can pack into them. And I think it's interesting the way that the kind of the evolution has come about, right? So you start with just 1/2 inch and 5/8, and then you go into moisture and mold protection, right? Which is cool, but then you have to kind of take the next step into performance, right? So now you have high abuse or high impact, like the baseball bat stopper, right?
Mm-hmm.
So which is kind of a cool thing. Like you can sit there and hit it with a baseball bat, and all you have to do is fill it with mud and paint it. And then then you get into the exterior gypsum, right? So the exterior envelope with our fiberglass products, and then who knows what's next. Now we're into the sustainability piece at this point. So it's how you can do those things but make less of an impact on the environment and make sure that it's as safe as possible. And I think that's kind of the next frontier, is how do you make the products that you sell and have less of a carbon footprint, for the future. And
I think, I think that's huge. It's, as far as the health and wellness of the earth, right? Like that's sure. Where gypsum, I think there's not a lot of negativity. And I think actually it's just starting to shed light where it's like, hey, this isn't the greatest thing and it needs to evolve. And I think to Tyler's point, that's where it starts going. And before I get to that, or before we go down that rabbit hole, going back, like I'm super interested in the exterior stuff, sure. And it's fiberglass face, but the core of it is also it's waterproof, right? I mean, it's fine right. To be in the elements. I guess, is it just a cost thing that you wouldn't just use something that's moisture? Like, why wouldn't you use an exterior grade product, say in a moisture zone, like a shower?
So you've got those options, right? So we have an interior. It's called an interior extreme, for those exceptionally wet areas, or for for pre-rock when you're when the building's not tight and closed in. You have those products that have got a 1-year exposure warranty, so it's not waterproof forever. It's just got an exposure warranty that gives you a window, so you can keep your project on track.
Sure.
But it's a good point. Part of it is the finish, right? The finish of the paper is rough, right? So you have a rough fiberglass face on it. So you're almost expected to do a level 5 finish, and even with a level 5 finish, you're not going to get the smooth finish that you're going to get with a paper face product.
But in a tile zone, it would be it would be a more substantial underlayment than, say, the moisture board. Sure,
we have a tile backer, EXP tile backer product that does wonders in those spaces.
Yeah, I guess, I mean, so to go back, the evolution of carbon footprint. I guess that's something that would be interesting to hear. Like what has evolved in product manufacturing and efforts.
Even how is it made in general?
Yeah, let's start
from
there.
Start to finish.
Yeah.
Sure. Well, there are 2 different kinds of gypsum, right? So you have natural gypsum, which is mined from a quarry, right? So you basically big explosion, and you fill up the trucks or you fill up the boat and you ship it, and then it goes to a plant, and it's pulverized essentially, and then you heat it up so it calcines, so you can work with it and make it kind of into a powder, and then it kind of mixes with a bunch of other stuff called a slurry, and it goes into kind of goes right into the board. It's cool. Kind of everything kind of comes together at one point. And I'm like talking with my hands. I'm from New Jersey. I'm sorry. Everything kind of comes together at one point, and then over a period of time, it dries together. The crystals from the middle of the board that kind of form into the paper, and then you just kind of put it through a kiln to kind of bake it and make sure it all solidifies, and you evaporate enough of the water out of it. That's the dime tour, but it's that way. Or you get what is it like? How do I want to say it's from a recycled gypsum. I'm sorry, it's recycled gypsum, so it's a byproduct gypsum, right? It's a pure gypsum that comes from basically energy plants that you get shipped in, and you can use them in for board as well, and that's a pretty pure product. But again, talk about the evolution of gypsum products. That's something that people were throwing away, and there were all kinds of environmental hazards that were going on, and red flags, and now the chemical that traps these, the stuff coming out of the tube, chemically combines and turns it into gypsum, which is cool. And then it's byproduct gypsum, and then you can put it into gypsum board. So there are several manufacturers that use that method as well.
Can they use that on any of their product lines, or is that like a specific product line that you would use that gypsum in?
No, you can use it on anything.
So there's no health concerns going that route versus a natural, like you said, explosion.
Nope.
So where is the biggest area that you guys can improve upon as far as carbon footprint?
So I think it's just, again, our plants, we have 20 plants throughout the country, and then we have cement board plants and IFP plants and paper plants. So I think it's just really fine tuning them, and then just figuring out where the opportunity is. I don't know that there's one specific thing, because there's so many options and so many opportunities to improve. And that's kind of, we have an entire team that is just there that kind of guides us and takes a look at what we're doing, and then kind of points us in the right direction. So
it's not so much exploring different materials to replace, say, gypsum. It's more about how it's collected and how you're using it. I think about concrete, where, one of the big things with concrete is try to use less of it. That's and I think, can you use less gypsum by using a byproduct or something as like a filler, right?
So, I mean, there are a bunch of different ingredients that go into it, but I think in terms of byproducts, vermiculite is one of the items that goes in that allows you to take weight out, and that's why Type C board can perform as well as 2 layers of Type X board, right? So you get an additive that goes in there that allows it to expand, but the problem is it's hard to mine, it's hard to get, and it's expensive. So there are trade-offs with everything.
Gotcha.
I feel like I get super confused with all the types of gypsum that there are, or the types of board that there are.
Yeah.
There's so many, and for each different purpose, and then I feel like I just go which one's heavier. It's like, all right, 5/8 fireboard, fire rock, that's going to be heavy. But I've never looked into how it's made. Do you know what I always notice with drywall? Not necessarily with me, but a lot of it gets thrown out at the end of a job. And it's, the labor aspect of finishing the drywall is more than actually cutting or piecing board. So I remember one of the first jobs that I walked on where they were subbing drywall, and there's like half sheets thrown in the dumpster. And I remember working for my dad, and it would be like you needed a half sheet, and he'd have you piece together like 6 pieces to make up a half sheet. I don't know, is there any way that they recycle existing drywall on like larger projects for you guys?
Yeah, we've got several projects out there, and sometimes that's by an architect that they require it to be recycled. So we've got several that we've trialed to work on. I think they're all kind of in process right now, but yeah, we do recycle board.
Yeah, that's interesting. I mean, it all gets thrown in the dumpster right here. I feel like on the small projects it would be tough, but I would imagine that there's got to be a fair amount of waste on a larger project as far as board goes.
I think it's easier to control too, like when it's say a high rise or commercial job where you can have a dedicated dumpster. But
yeah,
even like John, like doing a full house, the amount of blue board you see get trashed, it's like
I feel like it's almost a full dumpster.
Yeah, and you look at it, it's like, man, like if you could just somehow put those pieces together, I could do 25% of the next house down the street.
You could.
You need a good finisher.
A lot of taping.
Yeah. Imagine, hey, we're not throwing any of that out. Use those in closets.
And all the, just give it to the new guy.
And the curved walls.
I'm not
sure
telling you, my dad
boss.
would make me do that. He would be like piece and stuff everywhere, and I'm like, that doesn't even make sense. Like, it's so much harder to finish all that and make it look nice. Just buy another sheet.
My boss would, back in the day when I first started, he'd always buy, I think I've said this 100 times, a sheet less or a piece less, a stick less of trim.
Yeah.
And he wouldn't tell you, and you just had to be like, I'm not going to get more of it. So you'd always have to kind of manage your waste. And it was whatever it was, trim, base.
You're using the cutout from the door.
Yeah, dude, it was stupid. But that's how I grew up.
It goes back to the comment I think I made a couple episodes ago. It's like the Amazon thing. It's like if there was just a better service for collecting all those boxes,
yeah,
so they could use them for packing, like Tyler, you said. But it's like the same thing with gyp, and because I would assume that's probably not a great product to be burying back in the earth, right? Ideally.
Well, I mean,
I don't think it's a good product to bury in the earth. Just,
I mean, if we were thinking about the environment, okay.
So gypsum is used as a fertilizer in a lot of places.
Well,
screw it! I'm gonna start throwing it out back.
Just throw it out the window.
Yeah, there's nothing
in my job right now.
I mean,
just get a wood chipper.
I feel like there'd be way worse things to be putting into the landfill than
yeah. I mean, we do use it as a construction material, so it's not. There's still tests that we have to run and standards that we have to abide by, and everything that we sell here, all of our purple products are Green Guard Gold certified. So,
what's that mean?
That means it's certified to the highest level of UL environment and Green Guard have merged. So it's the indoor air quality pieces. It's not going to be harmful in a setting where you're going to put it into a house or a hospital or a gym or anywhere. You're not going to have any kind of byproduct gas that's off gassing into that space. So
does that trickle down through your muds and plasters and things like that?
Yeah, we've got Green Guard. It's a minimum Green Guard, and then I think in most cases Green Guard Gold.
That's what I always wondered, Nick, is all right, so you're doing a bathroom and you're using purple, right, which is a moisture resistant board. And then what if you use normal compound over top of it? Like, you're depending on your primer at that point to keep the moisture out. Obviously, if it got through your primer and then into your spackle or drywall compound, is that a non-issue because there's so much more area that's not spackle, or are you supposed to be using a different drywall compound?
So we have different drywall compounds, but my thought is most people just end up using the regular drywall compound that they use. So like a setting compound, like a dry powder that you mix up. Those are all mold and moisture resistant as well. So, but in terms of just general drywall compound, there's not a lot of air that gets in there. So I don't know that it's a huge concern unless there's something organic that sticks to it, right? And that's
Sure.
kind of where you would get probably some of that mold developing.
Yeah, I like to coat stuff first coat with a setting compound, just because I feel like it hardens up better, it sticks better, you have less tape failure. But then when I get to top coats and finish coats, work out of a bucket so much easier.
Sure.
You guys don't. So Nick and John, the dirty little secret is they don't use drywall up in Boston.
Not in residential.
I used to when I was little.
Well, that's Boston's plaster hotbed, right? I mean,
yeah, and I wanted to get to that. Is it, do you handle the whole Northeast?
Whole country.
The whole country. So is
the
there any
universe?
Yeah. See this drywall board right here?
Yeah. So you don't get one of them without handling the entire country.
This is an open space. It's public space. This is not mine.
So I think you would know best. Where else are they doing blue board and a true plaster veneer?
So there's a small market in Pittsburgh, there's a market in Virginia, and then a little piece in Wisconsin, and then sporadically here and there. Not much to speak of, but Boston is by far, I think, the plaster capital.
Do you know why?
I think it's just the history there, and I think it's just a tradesman thing, right? I mean, it's just guys learned it and they're comfortable with it, and it's just something that maybe the market is used to.
John's so excited to hear this right now. Look at him.
I love it. I mean, I grew up drywalling because that's what we could do, and when we were carpenters, we do it all. So that's why I got the stilts in the background. Where are they? They're somewhere over there.
Nice.
Because it was always taping, and it was, dude, I used to love it. But it was like that. I don't know how you do it, Tyler, because I was a perfectionist, and I don't think I'm a perfectionist compared to you. So it's like I would always try to make that perfect coat, and then you end up keep messing it up, and you're like, just walk away, just walk away, and you can sand it down. And then you'd be taught like the wet sponge sanding, so there's no dust. So you'd like wet a sponge before it's totally set. You'd like circling it out, and it's
I feel like that doesn't work.
Hey, we did it for years. And it was.
I feel like I just get sponge marks and then it starts to drag.
Yeah, true. But it was. I loved it. Then I tried plaster and I was like, wow, total different ball game.
You were doing drywall in homes?
Yeah, we would. We would do a lot in house, basically, even electrical.
Yeah.
That we would do it all. So it was like any kitchen we do, we would just board it. Like I got like a whole the milk crate of all my drywall stuff. Like it's a couple guns. It's stupid. Like the fact
it's completely, but it's weird because even if you go out on the Cape, not everyone's doing plaster out there.
Yeah, true.
It's just a lot of drywall out there, so it really seems to be very central to Boston and right outside of that, which is crazy. I kind of wish that they did it here, but whatever. Now I can
bring it
myself.
back. Didn't Marley do plaster?
Dude, I think he brought somebody in to do it on like a few select rooms where they knew there was going to be like lighting issues and telegraphing of the joints and all that stuff. But so if you guys have an issue, you patch it with drywall compound, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, so you're not like bringing the plasters back to do touch up and stuff like that.
No,
I'll still bring them back.
Yeah.
We usually try and have those guys do one touch up and then turn it over to painters. So someone's accountable.
I mean, I feel like that makes the most amount of sense, and the painters are probably qualified to be doing those.
Otherwise, they're always pointing fingers. Well, that wasn't me. That was...
Yeah.
So this board that you can hit with a baseball bat.
Yeah.
Garages and stuff like that.
Absolutely. Garages, gyms.
Kids' rooms.
Bedroom.
I have a 3-year-old who's like a Tasmanian devil, 100%.
And it's 1/2 inch.
It's 5/8. So it's we sell a
Okay.
lot of it on commercial jobs. So if you think about like a hospital hallway or something like that, a lot of it goes in there. Some warehouses, right? So you'll have a warehouse that'll do the top 10 feet or the bottom 10 feet in high impact, and then finish the rest with just a regular 5/8 XP or a regular 5/8 board, just because there's so many impacts and on a day-to-day basis that it just takes away the time and effort that you would need to finish it. So you basically just patch it with mud and then paint over it, instead of having to cut out a thing and do the whole.
So it
Did
won't
they
allow the
make
bat
it-
to break through it? Is that
Right.
it?
Yep. There's a mesh, fiberglass mesh in the back of it that just prevents anything from going through. It's cool.
Even if John took a swing at it.
Even if John took a swing at it.
Okay, hockey pucks.
Hockey pucks. Yep.
All right.
Golf balls. See, the problem is with golf balls is my ceiling would have to be high impact, because they just go everywhere. You never know.
Do they make that in a fire board as well?
It's fire rated. So we've got
Okay.
it's UL approved. We have UL assemblies that are associated with it. So it's we have a technical line that you can call to make sure that the assembly that you're using is appropriate for that board. But for the most part, you can swap it.
If I feel like this comes up a lot. If it's 5/8, is it automatically fire rated board?
No. So there are a couple different. It's a good question. So especially as kind of everything's evolved and things have gotten lighter, there's a light 30 board. So light 30 is essentially like an interior space in an office building. So it has to be 5/8, but it doesn't have to be fire rated. So but anything that says Type X is just a regular fire rated board, so you can use it in the appropriate UL rated assemblies. I think that's how I'm supposed to say it. And then you go up from there, and you have C board, right? So C board, it can be 5/8 or ½ inch depending on the assembly as well.
So seaboard is the one with vermiculite?
Yep.
Yeah.
Good.
I use that in my potting soil.
Wasn't that an
gotta get some
they use it for
gypsum in there.
insulation or something?
I'm gonna start putting in gypsum in there. You think I'm kidding? I got scraps leaning against my shop right now that I'm gonna throw out back and run over with the tractor and lawnmower. Just leave them there. Next year I'll have the greenest grass around.
Purple.
Already
It'll be
do.
purple.
Yeah, that's true. All right, so about purple.
Not
Is
his
that-
uniform, right?
No, I mean it's not Cherry Hill West purple.
No,
it's
it's,
like a deep royal purple.
It's a lighter purple than Cherry West.
Is the same? Is that the same? Like, is the board the same and it's just a coating on it that's different?
No, so everything's different. The paper is different and the core is different. There's a product called Spore Guard, which is a mold and mildew inhibitor that's in the core and on the paper. So when you go to a mold and moisture test, it's an ASTM or an ASTM G21 test that you basically have to make sure that it resists mold for so long that it can be applied to bathrooms in non-wet areas, right? So you want to use it in areas that are not going to be directly hit with a shower head, or you're not going to put it inside the tub area. You're going to put it up and around the outside, and kind of butt it up to your cement board or whatever you're using for the tub space.
So is the exposure consistent exposure that they're rating this, or is it allowing it to dry out between exposure?
It's consistent exposure. It's a 90-day test.
So it could be like dunked in water for 90 days or wet to a certain extent for 90 days?
It's basically I'm not going to speak 100% to the tests. I don't know exactly what the test does, but it's basically exposed to mold and moisture for a 90-day period.
And it just doesn't allow it to penetrate the core, or it doesn't allow it to grow on it?
Both.
Man, that's kind of fancy.
It is.
I feel like that's actual science.
Well, what I wonder is, like, why don't they just make one board that does all of this stuff? And I guess, I guess from a commercial, looking at it from a commercial end, you're talking probably, a few dollar spread between all of these types. And in a high rise, you're getting tens of thousands of sheets, so then it adds up to a really big number. But if there was a product on the market that could literally cover all of the bases, I mean, this is John's trigger. It makes it easier, and it like then people don't have to think about it. So I guess like what is prohibiting us from coming up with a product that could, you know, really just do everything? Wouldn't be a concern in wet areas. You know,
this could be the moment where you go full universe, not just take over the nation, but this could be the idea you've been waiting for the whole time.
Man.
From Nick. Like, why did we think of that, guys? Anybody?
Write it on the whiteboard.
Right.
Like, I used to have a teacher that could write like this, so he could stare at you, and you wouldn't be able to get away with anything.
Oh, I hate that.
That's called the psycho.
Yeah, it was terrible. So I think it's a good question. I think it's something that's probably bounced around more than more than we want to admit, right? But
Yeah.
I think there's I think the market is so into the regular board that doesn't have the mold and mildew resistance in it. I mean, you are talking. I mean, if you just look at like a Lowe's or a Home Depot price, there's probably a $5 spread between each sheet.
Mhm.
And and to your point, that's going to add up. So until there's this kind of, I guess, compression of attributes together and pricing at the same time, I don't know that we're ever going to get to a place where there's one board.
Yeah. I mean, even from plaster, I remember before I even started my business, I renovated my bathroom and I hired a plasterer, and I wanted to save money. I was like, I'll hang the board. And he came over and I had
We all did that.
Yeah, I had drywall up on the wall. He goes, yeah, that you gotta take that down. I'm like, it's the moisture stuff. He goes, you can't plaster over that. I'm like, son of a gun. And
Do you know what the difference is between that?
what?
Like what you guys use and like
It's just I think it's just the paper. It has a different chemical binder to it, and it's just so the plaster sticks to it because I mean, they have gypsum plaster and lime-based plaster, but it's set up. I mean, I don't know why I'm explaining this, John. You probably do a better job.
No, you're doing a great job.
You guys use lime-based plaster?
We use depends. We've used both. We're
Why?
using-
I defer to my plasterer. I'm not going to tell him to use something that he's
no,
not
we don't.
comfortable with.
We don't tell. The gypsum-based plaster that we use has a higher PSI, so it's much harder, but it's on a much more high level of execution. Most of the time, we're using like Unical or something like that.
You doing like a slump test with your plaster
Nope.
just to verify that PSI?
Nope.
Because that'd be awesome. Do a video on that.
Test. You can do a core test.
I
Just
should-
leave samples
you know what?
out and you're going to test everything.
John, I like that idea. I'm gonna figure out how to test the PSI
Dude,
strength.
do a slump test. That'd be awesome.
Well, I think we need to test it after it cures, though. John, how do we test the PSI strength of the wall?
Trust your plaster guy.
Oh, that's.
Oh,
What if your customer came in and was like, I don't think that this reached the proper PSI?
It should be
for our
3,200
walls."
PSI.
Yeah. Wait, so John, you said that you found the baseball bat video?
yeah, I did, but Nick won't let me share the screen, so I can't.
Oh, I didn't know. Did you ask me?
Yeah, I texted you.
Oh, I have that on Do Not Disturb. Sorry.
So do I. But
I feel like didn't we just have a podcast with two Johns? Yeah, Icon.
Yeah.
We got
Yes,
two Johns again.
Oh, so we're gonna watch this.
You know Bob?
I do.
I
So-
feel like they got to get you in there with the bat though. Bob looks somewhat feeble.
Wait till
Sorry,
you
Bob.
see this swing though.
All right, so we're all
Wait,
right. So
was
we're
that
watching
one-handed?
Bob.
Yeah,
We're
Was
watching
that a real
Bob.
baseball bat?
yeah. It's so funny when he says it. He goes, and
I'll
you can
back
see
it up.
it's compromised. The wall.
Hold on, why does it say Gold Bond brand high impact?
So that's its name.
Oh,
Go-
man, I thought Gold Bomb was something else.
That's a small
total
bat.
replacement. Here we go.
All right, so we have Nick. You have to. Oh, we can't. I wish we could hear this. Nick, I feel like
you guys
you got to
can't hear
do a
this?
play-by-play on
No.
this.
Oh, I thought you guys could hear it.
All right, John, then you got to give us a play-by-play on this.
I don't know what kind of bat he's wielding.
All right.
I
You
think
see
that's
It's in
a,
a suitcase, so when
I
you
think
go
that's
to a
a
show,
roll. I think that's a rolling pin.
Yeah, so we have Bob
Bob Couchy.
Couchy, and he's now holding basically something that you would beat somebody in a frat with.
Yes, exactly.
Less boardy and more And he takes a decent swing at normal, typical drywall and goes right through it. And then he appears to go with the same level of strength into this high impact
It's a high
board.
force.
Yeah.
It does look
he
like
could have put a little bit more behind it, but I'm not sure it would have made a difference.
I mean, it looks like it hurt his shoulder, like the way
Yeah.
it
It
stopped.
does hurt your shoulder because it doesn't give.
Yeah. If you guys want to see the video,
Ruin my golf game.
High Impact XP Gypsum Board versus the competition on YouTube.
So I thought you guys could hear
that
it.
is not a baseball bat.
I don't know what that thing is.
Well, you could hit it with a baseball bat. Let's put it that way.
Yeah. No,
I feel like that would hurt more than a baseball bat, whatever he's holding. It's like a medieval
I want to see.
weapon.
I want to see Tyler take a full two-handed swing at that board. When we go.
So is it all right? So the back of it is a mesh product, so it's probably comparable to, like the old what are they called? I feel like they still make them, but the tile board that has the mesh in it, where like you can dent it, but it's so hard to get all the way through it.
So
like a cement product.
our perma-based product has a mesh netting around it. It's kind of the same thing, but I've never seen anybody take a baseball bat to it. So
I feel like that would hurt actually.
yeah.
So we gotta get Bob on the podcast. Bob, let's get Bob on now. Bring Bob, and
Hey,
we're gonna
funny you
get a
should say
live.
that.
Bob, come on in and get a live.
I've been sitting here
video
for
of
45
Bob.
minutes waiting.
Bob,
wielding his stick.
Bob comes in. He's got his arm in a sling because they've had him do this how many takes now?
That video is probably a dozen years old at least. So he's now the manager of our central area. So he's moved out of Charlotte.
2015, 11,000 views. Watch out, Nick. They're coming for you.
They got me.
I'm
John,
like
you-
at least 10 of them.
We're like 15.
It's just looped.
John, a couple minutes ago, you said that you guys have a resource basically for your systems if you're questioning or how to put something together. I think that's a valuable tool that probably not a lot of people use, especially in the residential market. I feel like that gets lost, where you guys are probably helping the larger architects and, from a commercial standpoint.
So I thought the same thing. Actually, those guys, I work with those guys every day. We get calls, from basically like, how do I finish this wall to, how do we put together this really complex, drawing on this huge building. So it's cool. It's our 800 national team. So you've got a contractor, an engineer, and an architect that work here. And they answer the phone, and that's kind of their claim to fame. I mean, those guys they'll answer the phone. If they don't answer the phone, you either leave them a voicemail or hit them with an email, and they get back to you within 24 hours at the longest. It's usually less than an hour. So they were a great resource for me when I was in the field, because I would when you're in the field and you're new in this space, you don't know everything there is to know, and the worst thing you can do to a contractor is tell them that you know something and then just make something up, right? So I would call them when I was in the field. They would answer me, or they would call right back, and that's what they live for. They want to solve problems for us and for the market. So and honestly, it doesn't have to be National Gypsum products. They get calls all the time that are just industry questions, right? They're hey, I'm working on this assembly. Can you help me? And and nobody has to tell them to answer that question, right? They just want to help. They're here to make everybody better, which is a great team to have on your side.
The interesting thing you just said is that it doesn't have to be National Gypsum. So obviously there's other manufacturers out there.
Sure.
I guess what are some of the things that set you guys apart? Is it this continuing education?
Bob.
Yeah.
Bob and continuing education,
Good on it,
or
Bob.
So I think a lot of companies have continuing education. I think for us it's a few things. We pride ourselves on service, and I know everybody says that, and I'm sure every manufacturer should say that. But we like to take it to the new level. We have reps that have been on our team for 40 years. They know their customers in and out. They know everything that goes on in their market, and they own their market. The reason I know anything about plaster is because our rep in Boston has been there for 25 years, and we talk about plaster once a month. And it's just he's my resource. We have a lot of great relationships like that throughout our company with our customers. And I think it's breadth of products, right? You have the ability to we can address sound, we can address impact, we can address mold and moisture, and then we can do the everyday stuff, and supply everybody with the resources on the back end to help them do their job. So I think it's a combination of things.
That's one of the more overwhelming things is how many products there are. And it's we're dealing with a project right now where they want to combat sound. Mm-hmm. The client's a sound engineer or an acoustical engineer or something like that, but at a different level, not from a system side where they're looking to us to come up with a system that's going to deaden the sound. It's like we're looking at drywall products that have a sound core in it.
Sure.
I remember I'm going to say years ago, I don't know how many years ago it was, but I remember there being a product on the market that had steel in it. It had like a steel sheet inside the drywall for sound.
Wow.
And now I guess you talk about the sound. What, how are you guys combating that? And again, I guess why isn't that just standard? Is it a cost thing again?
So definitely a cost thing.
Yeah. Soundboard is expensive. We have 4 sound products that we focus on, but every assembly's got its own STC, right? Its own sound transmission class. But we've developed 4 products that are basically just for sound, right? So you have wallboard, which is just our 1/2 inch and our 5/8 sound break, and that's got a viscoelastic polymer between 2 high density boards, right? And so that'll you'll see that mostly on commercial work and new construction, right? So
that's pre-manufactured. That's not a install one board, put some glue.
Pre-manufactured. It comes to you like that, and I think unit of 26. And we've got an entire sound book that team that I was just referencing has got. I think the sound book 2.0 has 315 assemblies that address both sound break and basically everything else that you can make a wall out of. So whatever you're trying to accomplish, we can get there. The sound break ceiling board is super cool. So Tyler, when I lived in Marlton, we had this basement, and it was right
Tell
up
me
right
you lived
under.
in Kings Grant.
No. I was in Mayfair.
Yeah, I feel like everyone who lives in Marlton lives in Kings Grant.
It's a huge neighborhood. But so I had this basement, and we had a hardwood floor right above it, and you would have thought my kids were a herd of buffalo. I mean, when you were down in the basement, it was just nonstop. So this product is 3.5 or 3/4 inches, 3/4 thick. It weighs a lot, but you got 2 assemblies, and where it really does well. If you can, you zoomed in. It's that IIC class, that impact class. So when you think about the impact of a shoe on a hardwood floor, this product absorbs it, and then it does basically the same thing as all of our other products, and that it dissipates the sound. So it's never going to be soundproof, but it'll help.
And so this gets fastened directly to your floor joist.
So you could fasten it to your floor joist. You could fasten it to sometimes you put a clip in between them.
Yeah. I feel like 3/4 of an inch. But do you say it's 3/4 of an inch?
Yes.
Yeah, that's got to be heavy.
It's not light.
No. All right, so how about the workability of these, like cutting these and working with these versus a standard board? Is that what's in the middle of it? Does that make it harder to cut?
It does. I could sit here and tell you that it doesn't, but it does. Most guys use a small hand grinder to cut through, just because that viscoelastic polymer it gets tough to cut through. I mean, you can cut through a board or 2 for training, but if you're doing a wall of 500 in a couple weeks, it wears out pretty quickly.
What about
so you're
Bob?
not doing like the typical squirt,
just
snap, and then
the
cut
Bob
the
scale
back.
is off the charts. So that's a different scale.
Bob
So
just
there is
cuts
one
it
score and
with
snap
scissors.
Yeah, the score and snap product that we have is actually pretty cool. It was I went to Boston right before everything shut down, because we have a hotel that our rep up there is working with a contractor. It's called Retrofit, Soundbreak Retrofit. So it's 5/16 thick, and it's basically made to just go over the existing board. So if you're in a space where you don't want to demo the entire wall, or you're on a tight budget and you need some sound protection, but you don't want to pull everything down and get the dumpsters and get everything else, you can basically laminate this over top of the existing wall and get some additional STC value out of it.
It's a good idea. I did that in my old house, just with 1/4 inch, because it was all plaster and I didn't feel like demoing everything. The walls were in terrible shape, and I ended up basically veneering 1/4 inch over everything, but then I had to pack out all my jams and everything else at the end of the day. I'm not sure it was that much easier than just skim coating it. But I was not looking for sound transmission at that point. But I feel like it would definitely help if I were.
In respect to that, I think, John, I don't know if you dealt with it, but usually if we're doing this, we're doing a drywall soundboard, and then we're adding blue board on top of that because you can't plaster over these products. Is that right?
You wouldn't be able to use plaster over these XP products. They're all mold and moisture resistant. The sound break is it's basically a high abuse board, so it's a higher density core. But again, because of the makeup of the paper, you wouldn't want to try to plaster over it.
Now, is that just because there's not a big enough demand to make this product with a plaster paper?
He named off like 3 places in the country.
Yeah.
It was a rhetorical question, John.
Good question, Nick.
Thanks, guy.
Nick's head's growing right now.
Good.
Everyone's just driving into a tree right now.
I cut you off, Tyler.
I feel like we never get into, other than fireboard, green board, standard drywall, we don't typically get into specialty products as far as like what you were telling us about, whether it's the soundboard, the high impact, and like these products, even the exterior board. It's not something. So I have a drywall supplier that we go to, and they carry all this stuff. But what are you guys doing to kind of get the word out with this stuff when most customers go into a Home Depot and they see green board, they see 3/8, 1/4 inch, 1/2 inch, maybe 12-foot sheets, mostly 4x8. How are people learning about this stuff if it's just the contractors who know about this? Because if I were a homeowner, I wouldn't know that any of these options even existed.
No, I think you're right. So when I started and I was interviewing for this job, I thought there were 2 kinds of drywall, right? I had no idea that the kind of scope that this industry has. So, for our purple products, we've kind of developed our own purple program, and we have a website. It's called askforpurple.com, and you can go in and kind of learn about the different products and see different how-to videos. We've got a campaign going, a purple campaign that's gone on for the last 12 years since we launched purple, and purple became distinctive and is just our color in the construction industry. So but to your point, we already know that it works in the commercial space. Is just translating that over to the residential space that I think that we need to work on, and I think that's a good point.
So are you guys going to vendors and suppliers, architects, both? Like what's your where are you guys looking to focus those efforts for it to trickle down? Because you're not going to go to the customer. I feel like this is a tough sell for company like you guys to go directly to customer. There's too many people that you'd have to hit. So are you looking for architects to start speccing this stuff? Are you looking to build new relationships with suppliers to start carrying different products? What's that look like for you guys?
So I think basically it's a combination of all those things. We have great relationships. I mean, we saw the AIA Continuing Education Center that we work with our architects through all the time. We have, now they're virtual lunch and learns, but we have thousands of lunch and learns every year with architects throughout the country. We have specialized reps that go out and talk to the architectural community, and then we have our sales reps that work with our distributors just to work through, what's available, what do these products do. Let's anytime we get a new distributor, we kind of walk through these kind of like this is actually a really cool sound break demo, but it's things like this. But I think you're right. I think it's just word of mouth. I think it's we've had the purple campaign going for 12 years now, and it's I think honestly it's probably driven through the contractor is probably the best way to go. That's how it kind of worked for us on the commercial side, and I think on the residential side, I think that's how we're gonna get to where we want to be as well.
So then when you're approaching these contractors, what's that pitch that, hey, you should be using our product versus other products that for all intents and purposes appear to be the same? Are you guys the only ones offering some of these products, or is your gypsum board actually different than what other people are offering?
So the one thing that we haven't touched on yet is our grid mark program. So
Let's talk about that.
yeah,
Let's talk about Gridmark.
Let's talk about them. Gridmar X is what we hear sometimes. So grid marks are
Gridmar X.
That's definitely how I was reading it.
So grid marks are cool. So they're guide marks, and they're located in 5 different places on the board, right? So you have both tapers. You have 16 inches, 24 inches, and 32 inches. So depending on how your studs are set up, whether it's 16 or 24 on center, you can go and just align them with the row grid marks that are going down the board, and essentially save the time and effort it takes to draw a line, hope you're right, and then hit the stud, right? So grid marks by itself saves time and effort because you're just not identifying you're not spending the time to identify the stud. And that's the one thing that I think everybody, whenever we go to any kind of show and we do any kind of grid mark explanation, everyone's like, wow, that's so easy, and how come nobody else has thought of it? Well, it's patented right now, right? So nobody else can use it. So we're the only drywall manufacturer in the country that can use grid marks or anything like it.
What if I came out with one that was actually Gridmar X with a space in there?
I think you can get away with a space, but not a dash.
All right, let's go space. But the response for contractors? Because I'm not gonna lie, it kind of sounds like it's for marketing, and I mean, I feel like they're on OSB and stuff. Zip does that, right, guys, with like their sheathing. But yeah, I don't know. Maybe my jobs are too small, where I'm remodeling a bathroom or a kitchen, and we have so much funky framing but like, would that make sense for you, Nick or John, where you're on these bigger builds where stuff's laid, you get big runs of stuff laid out 16 on center?
Personally, I don't think. I feel like I still don't use them because you have to set it up right from the beginning, right, John? It's like.
I wouldn't know.
You could always use it as
wouldn't know
as well, right? So
yeah,
if you're an inch off on your grid mark, you can always that's as a reference point. You're an inch off when you're 16 inches away, right?
Yeah.
And then in terms of training for labor, everyone, I'm sure you guys have seen it and talked to all your guests about it, but the labor piece of it, where you're trying to get somebody up to speed and just say, hey, hit every third X is at least a little bit of savings there, and it's a value in a market where there's not a ton of skilled labor that's just readily available.
I mean, we talked about this last week, and this is we got into it, but it's John right to the point of like making things easier for it's a lower point of entry. Does that does something like this kind of hit that same
John Hourihan
nerve?
Yeah.
No, it doesn't. I listened to that podcast, by the way.
Don't stop listening to yourself.
No, it was a good talk. It was a good conversation. I just think I have no problem with technology. It's just I have a real issue with when the creativity gets lost. Like doing drywall, that's if it speeds up the process and it's making it more efficient, dude, hands down, do it. Mm-hmm. I wouldn't say no to that. It's approved.
You just don't want it.
It's Johnny approved. Go ahead. You guys carry on.
We need a stamp. Johnny approved.
I think that's the toughest part about what you guys do, and that's kind of how we open up this conversation, where at the end of the day it begins and ends with drywall, and what's the full capacity? What sort of potential does this product hold? Or should we just be taking it at face value? What's the next step for it? How do we improve the product? How do we reduce that carbon footprint? I personally am not envious of your job or the position that you're in, or even a company like this, because it just seems like there's a ceiling, no pun intended, all the time as far as what I would be pounding my head against the wall thinking, what else can we do with this product? What's the next step? What can we do? How can we improve this? It just seems like it's so limited. So what do you guys do to kind of keep ahead of the curve and keep ahead of your competition, and kind of stay at the forefront of this industry?
So, I mean, we have, all the meetings that everybody has, right? So we have a technology team, we have sustainability team, and then we've got all of our technical assets that we've got, and we've got UL testing in Buffalo. Kind of the sum of those conversations were our Max 12 concept, which is probably more of a commercial commercial generated idea, but it's essentially, okay, so we have these assemblies. Can we apply these assemblies in something beyond the 8x12, 8 on the perimeter, 12 in the field, or 8 in the perimeter, 8 on the 8 in the field, general application. So we're able to come up with this Max 12 concept, and when it's combined with the grid marks, that essentially on a commercial job you can save up to $70 1,000, which when you're talking a 250,000 square foot job or a 1 million square foot job, it's $14,000, $15,000, $30,000 depending on the application. So
and you're saving that on labor and screws.
So it's labor, it's screws, and it's material, right? It's the because you only have to mud so many holes, and then
that makes sense.
It's it just goes faster, right? And it's the time element of it. So the fact that you don't have to identify the stud because you have the grid marks, and then the fact that you only have to put a screw every third X because of the Max 12, the combined savings is substantial. So, and I'm Max 12, that could go away tomorrow, right? Somebody could come up with a 12x12 pattern for their and have it fire tested, but the fact that the Max 12 and the grid marks work together in concert, and nobody else has the grid marks, I think that's the advantage that we have right now, especially in the commercial space.
So is the screw pattern, is that a fire rating? So I know we don't have them around here, but people have. Do you guys have screw inspections, like drywall inspections? People have
Sure.
them.
So on commercial jobs, the code official will come out and make sure that it's being applied correctly. So that's the cool part about the Max 12 is he can count. The installer is, whether he's learning or whether he's established, can hit every third X. The code official can come out and count every third X, and it just makes it easier for everybody involved.
So that is though for fire rating, the amount of screws that you're putting per board. Obviously weight,
so
if it's ceiling versus wall.
Sure, yeah. Well, it's always going to be walls. It's going to be a 1 hour metal stud, single layer, UL rated assembly. We have about 13 assemblies that qualify for the Max 12 fastener pattern.
I guess I didn't also think about that. Thinking about installing sheets, even on a wall, not necessarily locating studs from a left to right perspective, but screw pattern from top to bottom.
Sure.
Is far more difficult for me. I feel like I try and keep them straight, and then like from stud to stud they go up and down and up and down. I like when stuff looks nice and neat, so I feel like even if it's not necessarily helping me locate studs as much as keep my screws in a nice straight line, I'd probably be happier and sleep better at night. It's the little things.
So we went out and got RS Means, the time motion study folks, to do a study for us. So that's all on our max12.com. It's called our working properties portal. And so there's also a calculator there. So you can plug in all your information, plug in your zip code, figure out if it's union or non-union, and then kind of calculate the savings. So we've done all the background. It's not just a sales pitch that we did in our, that we had Bob do. It's
Yo, Bob.
Dude, Bob does it all. Does he sleep?
Hey, the guy's an animal.
So he draws all the X's on every board that leaves the factory.
He works so fast.
Bob. I mean it does make a lot of sense to me. I think that my head and my brain is always on such a smaller level, being that it's residential and we're doing mostly rehab or remodel work. But when you think of the amount of drywall and the amount of labor that goes into drywalling a hospital, drywalling a hotel, a commercial space,
sure,
there's definitely room for improvement, and you can reduce your labor and your finishing and all of that. I guess my brain is just not in that sector of the industry, so I don't really think that way. What is this that you pulled up, John? Or is this Nick?
This is me.
John.
Every time he says a website, I jump on it. It's pretty cool.
I've just never given John control. This is what he does every
so
podcast.
He's going nuts right now.
Yeah, it's like.
Oh, there you go. There's a side-by-side comparison.
So you hired RS Means to do a study as to how much labor savings and on the entire product?
Yeah, so between Gridmarks and Max 12, and honestly, we thought Max 12 was going to be the big labor savings, but then we realized through this process that the combination of the two is where the sweet spot is.
It's crazy what they can actually quantify these days, like the labor savings on boards installing. I
So
would never.
we built them right next to each other in the exact
Yeah.
same. The studs were exactly the same, and then you had the same crew work on both, and then they just basically timed it, right? So they timed the material, they calculated the material, they timed the labor, and the labor savings on just I don't know how many boards were on this, but it was like a 32% labor savings or something.
You
Like
had them start
Wow.
on the Gridmarks board first, though, right? So by the time they got around to the second one, they were tired and their numbers were dragging
See,
out.
Tyler, we didn't have to, you know.
Tyler,
I'm
the
cracking
skeptic.
myself up this podcast.
I mean, it makes sense. I guess, again, this is probably a rhetorical question, but why prevent anyone else from doing it? And I know because of I guess let me rephrase that. What's going to prevent someone else from coming out with a different type of marking system? Because I think it makes sense. I mean, that's why plywood does it. That's why Huber does it with their sheathing and their subfloor, and it probably does work. And obviously here you've been able to quantify it. But what really is going to prevent someone else from saying, well, we can add a marking system to it?
I mean, nobody has. So, I mean, I don't have the answer to that exact question. And I think it's a patent, right? So if they're going to violate the patent, it's kind of at their will, right? You can do it if you want, and we'll see what happens. So, again, I don't know the answer to that. So,
Yeah,
I think it's a good question.
No, but I think we often on the podcast talk about how we share, and it's like making the entire industry better and pushing yourself to innovate, where it's like, you guys could come out with this screw pattern, not patent it, and then you're forced to continue to innovate rather than saying, hey, screw all you guys, like, we got this, like, no one can take it. And not that that's wrong by any means, but it's something that we talk about a lot, is just, trying to build the industry as a whole. I don't really have a question with that. I guess it's just a thought where it's like you're basically controlling it. And again, no foul to it. I'm just curious about it.
Yeah, I mean, again, I think it's just that's kind of the way of business, right? It's intellectual property. It's something that somebody in our building came up with, and it's beneficial, and we don't charge anything extra for it, right? It's just something that is just something that we came up with that works, and it's
smart.
Have you guys had anything with the COVID? And I know that a lot of materials, right? There's delays, and the price has increased in them. What has that done for you guys, and is the price staying relatively consistent? Like plywood, for example, it's twice the cost of what it was pre-COVID. What's that look like for you guys?
So first, we were lucky enough to be considered essential early, and judging by how many different locations we have throughout the country, it was tough to juggle. But we've been relatively consistent with our pricing. Shipping has gone up, obviously, because everyone's trying to do everything at once. And now that the bottleneck's over, and construction is kind of back to where it was, I think there are some price increase letters out there, but I don't know that it's anything that's happening tomorrow, right? I think
there's not like a lead time or an issue as far as getting larger order place, or you guys getting raw materials to get the product out in the hands of everyone else, because that's what with the lumber industry, obviously there's the shortage, and then there's all the wildfires and everything else, so mills are burning, or forests are burning, so there's actual even pressure treat for a while you couldn't get it. You guys have been able to kind of keep production up throughout all of this with no issues or hiccups?
Yeah, our production is good. I mean, at all of our plants right now, it's solid. We haven't had any major hiccups at all. So knock on wood.
In the building industry, so I feel like what you guys do would be, even on the supply end, would be indicative of the overall health of the construction industry. You're supplying a major proponent of almost every single construction product. I would assume that when COVID hit, things shut down, it went down. What's it look like kind of as we are now, and on the horizon? Are things moving back up?
So I think we follow kind of all the same things that most of you would follow, and that's housing starts and builder indexes and our builder confidence indexes and those types of things, and everything from starts to permits to everything is kind of back to what it was and trending upward in the right direction.
That's good. I feel like my pulse, or what I have my finger on the pulse of, is not necessarily indicative of the overall state of the industry. And same thing with you, Nick, and John. Yeah. We're all somewhat specialty contractors, so even in a somewhat unhealthy or unstable industry or market, we can usually remain pretty healthy. So I don't know if we're true indicators of the state of the construction economy right now.
But product's getting weird. I mean, we're putting on a porch, one of our projects, and I looked at it, and all the stock arrived, and it was like, I don't know, 40 2x12s, and I was like, John, it's another John. I'm like, what's the deal? Like, really? It's a 6 foot span. 2x12s necessary?
Yeah.
He's like, that's all they have for PT is 2x12s.
Yeah.
I was like, all right, I guess we're overbuilding this one.
Cost you how much money?
We asked, they didn't respond. Like, are you matching 2x8 cost?
Yeah.
So that's one of the first things, and that lead times are just getting crazy. I know we just got an email from Yale Appliance saying that they've secured a bunch of appliances, so that way there's no lead times. But it is, and there's rumors of another nationwide shutdown looming. So it's like, we keep going, but it's so, I know we're getting sidetracked here, but it's so funny how clients and the general public reset, where it's like, we've started a project in the middle of COVID, worked around every guideline, did everything people asked, and it's like, so why is it taking a month longer? The world ended 8 months ago. we hammered out everything, and it's just kind of funny how people, I mean, it goes back to having it documented. Do a different podcast.
Yeah, I have a couple of things that are hung up, but I constantly am checking with our kind of go-to vendors and suppliers to make sure what pricing looks like and what lead times have looked like. There's one or two things that we've kind of got hung up with that are an issue, but overall it's not hurting too badly at this point, luckily for us.
That and right now it's subs.
Yeah.
Subs are so spread thin. So thin.
Is it just because they're so busy, or they're not getting help?
I think they're not growing, and they're just taking on everything because every homeowner's calling. So it's.
I think it's compounding, John. Even like the material, it's like I just had a very similar conversation with a client before we hopped on here. It's like we had a 10 to 12 week lead time for a product. It's now 20 weeks.
Yeah.
And it's like, they're like, I know, sorry, we're just backed up. We had issues with material. And it's like, then I tell the client, it's like, what do you mean you couldn't get that hood within, you told me 10 to 12. I'm like, I know, but he can't get raw material to make it. And it's like this, it just trickles so far where by the time it gets to these clients, they almost just don't care. It's like,
they don't.
And it's so...
it goes back to
so
Amazon.
Frustrating.
I want it tomorrow. What do you mean I don't? It's not Prime. Like, did you check?
Right.
And then I've had clients that were doing multi-million-dollar renovations, and it's like that round window's $2,700. I went on Lowe's.com, and they have that same window for $400, and I'm like, we should meet so I can slap you physically, because I can't do it on the phone. And B, it's not the same product. So it's, and I look at it again internally going, I have not educated my client enough. And we do, like Tyler said, everyone I call or talk to about whatever it is, it's like you end the conversation with how's things looking. Don't give me the BS boilerplate. Just tell me what's happening so I can forecast. Like for me, windows, like we're buying $500,000 in Marvin windows, and it's like there are certain ones with certain details with the architect. Some are like 4 weeks and some are 12 weeks. And it's like, so if you were to take the general rule of what you just ordered and tell the next client and be like, wait a minute. So like we're literally, before we used to order when we started framing, now we're ordering just as we finished the dig. And some of those will still be behind on. So it's crazy. And appliances, I feel like, are just going to get totally hung up. I don't know.
Yeah, right now I'm waiting on a carriage door to get made, and it was like the initial lead time was 8 weeks, and we're at 12 weeks or something, and now they're telling me Thanksgiving. And it's one of those things where it's like, I have to rip out what's there, we have to install new, we have to trim it, and it's one of those jobs where like I just piece trim. It's a built up trim assembly too around it, so leaving those parts out that die into it are going to hang me up with finishing and everything else. So it's like finish the job to a certain extent, leave those parts out, come back, install the door and finish it, and then I'm spraying in an area that's already completed and everything else, and explaining that to the customer at the same time is part, that's one of the most difficult aspects of it, because they're paying good money. You promised a schedule, and it's almost like I'm owning those material delays because it's my job, but there's really, it's out of my control at this point.
It's crazy. And I feel like one of the big ones that we don't talk about is fireplace inserts.
Oh yeah,
they're like impossible to get. I've had to buy all mine direct, and then to find a rep that will then install that, who didn't own it, has been a thing. And then we ordered 2 of them for a project, and they're like, yeah, no problem. They sent them out. They sent 1, and I was like, yo, we paid for 2, and they're like, oh, your next one's gonna ship today. It's been, I don't know, 4 months. Like, it's kind of crazy how. It's also the fact that vendors and suppliers aren't telling you the truth.
Yeah.
They want the sale, take it, and then you're like, wait a minute, what's the tracking? Can you send me the tracking?
Right.
Oh, it's freight. Well, freight won't call me.
I feel like tile is like that. We've had 3 projects where it's been tile. It's like 4 to 6 weeks. You place the order, you get an email, 14 weeks. It's like this is like you're going into this lying, and that's even more frustrating. We're going down a rabbit hole here, John.
You know what? We got to start making drywall tile.
Drywall tile.
Think about it.
Don't think it's not on the list.
Well, out of the moisture resistant board and impact resistant board. Just killing.
Fiberglass backing, right?
Well, we're doing a lot of waterproof plaster right now, and I feel like that's going to become increasingly popular. In respect to what Tyler just said, is that something that is on your radar as far as getting into more of a waterproof plaster material or mud material?
We have a waterproof. We just came out with it, and I don't deal with our permabase line very much, but we just came out with a waterproof cement board. That's our first run into anything down that path, but it's not something. Besides that, that's not something that's really been part of the conversation.
Yeah, is that? What's that product called?
It's permabase WP.
So that's going to be comparable to a lot of those foam core boards, where
it's still a cement board.
And you're sealing the seams or taping them, or do you not know?
You're sealing the seams and the fasteners.
So you would be basically caulking the seams and then coating over them, or is it like a tape joint?
It would be. I'm trying to remember again. It's the whatever the waterproofing bucket is.
Red guard.
Yeah, like the red. It's one of those on the seams, and then you would also do the fasteners. So
interesting. Yeah, I think a lot.
There may be a mesh tape, but I'm not positive.
Because I think that's so. Originally, a lot of the tile boards were not waterproof, and people are using them assuming that they are waterproof, and then there's issues down the road because they're only moisture resistant, or they could be saturated with water, but water still can penetrate them. So a lot of people are moving towards the completely waterproof boards, which you're using like an adhesive or a butyl or a proprietary sealant on the seams.
Right. Yeah. So our original perma-based was, it's a great product. You're not going to grow mold or moisture. It was a low absorption rate. I think it was under 8%, but it's still not waterproof. So
yeah.
And I feel like we saw that a lot, where it's like you would see guys just rolling the seams and the fasteners, or even just the seams, and it's like, I know I've reached out to a handful of people and just let them know, like, hey, that product's not waterproof. So it's like you basically created the product to remove the
Extra
mistake
step of waterproofing. They did that on the bathroom I was telling you about with like those people that I know, and I walked in, they just have like the corners, the seams, and the fasteners waterproof.
Where at the end of the day, it doesn't take that much more time to just do the whole board.
Maybe it's like a knowledge thing, where they just think that that's like the weak point.
Yeah.
I don't know.
John, so we talked a lot about board, but I want to know what you guys are making, like as far as the mud and things like that. Because I feel like I can hang board, but I can't mud.
Let's see it.
Is there a video? I can pull that up. I can share my screen.
I will make a video. Oh yeah, not on YouTube.
Oh. How convenient.
But I can't mud for the light. Like I feel like John, I think Hourihan, you said it earlier. It's like I would just sand, and then I'd be back down to the tape. I'm like, got to start over. It's like I'm watching other guys, and I'm like, they're flying through, and they understand that the process. So with talking about adding the X's to the boards and things like that, are there? I look at the guys up in Canada, Drywall Nation. I don't know if they developed the butt board or if that was another product where the seams were basically floating between studs, and they created this material that had this concave to it. So when you screw the board together, it gave you this almost divot. So when you hit the seam, it made it easier you didn't have to spread that mud out as far to get it really flat.
It was creating like a recess on your butt joint, your factory butt joint.
Right, so more than the tapers themselves, it would go deeper, so you wouldn't have to spread it out.
But on the butt joint.
On the butt joint. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. So the factory edge.
Yeah.
Correct.
Gotcha.
So I guess my question is what kind of developments are you guys working on that side of it, like the finishing of the board to make it easier or more user friendly?
So that's again, I'm not making excuses. I'm the gypsum product manager. I don't know what they on the IFP side have available. Again, I think we talked a little bit about our bad goods, and our bad goods are tremendous. They're the quick set products, right? So they have the time on the bag. So 15, 20, 40, 90, and that's literally the amount of time that it sets. So you're steady, and then it sets as soon as it hits that time, as long as it's mixed right. That's one of the better products on the market in that category, just because it's so consistent, and that's the constant feedback that we always received. In terms of the regular muds, like the buckets of mud, we do have a Dust Tech product, which is also an XP product, which is our mold, moisture, and mildew resistant. So it's what Dust Tech does is, especially if you're doing a renovation, you can sand it down, and the particles fall closer to the floor instead of kind of blooming and going all over the room. So it's something that it kind of aids in cleanup, and especially if you're in an existing residence, it's not going to get, well, I shouldn't say never. It's not going to get, you're not going to see it like up on the, I used it in my, my powder room in my last house, and there was dust everywhere, right? It gets in the vents, and, I'm an amateur, and I'm not, doing it on a day-to-day basis, and there was dust everywhere. So this is a product it's a little heavier, and it chemically combines, and then it just falls to the floor. So that's one of our newer options that we've got with our mud.
I remember trying that stuff, the dust control, or the where it's supposed to sand and, like you said, fall easier earlier on, and then we started using more dustless sanding, and I never went back to it. And I never really even thought about it until you just said that. But I was literally just in a kitchen today where we had to do a small patch and have to set up all this protection all over the counter, all over the floor, to make like one little patch and sand it, which I feel like a product like that would be super useful.
Yeah, and I think we only sell it in 1 gallon bucket,
They're
buckets at
the
the
small ones.
Yep.
But I never did a side by side. We need to get Bob to do a side by side test of these two.
Between the two, I think you can do it. We can. I'd be favorable. Favor of that.
Do one of each. Do you? I guess you guys have never used like the setting compound, John. Have you?
I've been out of the game for a minute.
Yeah, so I use that a lot of times on tape coats, especially in bathroom areas. But it dries harder. I feel like it bonds better, so you'll have less tape failures. You can obviously coat again quicker. But I feel like it's just such a pain in the butt to be made. I don't move that fast too, so it's like depending.
Yeah,
on
I need like the
space that you're
200 or
using.
whatever the longest one is. I double it.
When I'm doing it, I just feel like I'm mixing and cleaning the entire. Like I'm mixing a batch and then I'm like spackling and then I'm cleaning and then mix. So I get a lot more done. I can, coat a bathroom and be on the finish coat out of a bucket by the end of the day, but it's just nonstop spackling and cleaning. So if I'm working out of a bucket, it's like I'll do a tape coat one day and then come back and do another coat the next day. But those setting compounds allow you to just get everything done super quickly. But they definitely don't sand easy as well.
No, well, that's one of the things that we adjusted with the Quickset Light, and it's still not as easy to sand as the products in the buckets, but it's an improvement on the craft bags.
But I've had people who work for me where I'm like, all right, we're gonna put some hot mud is what we call it on there, and then they put it on there. I'm like, no, like that does not sand like normal drywall compound. It's gonna be such a terrible experience to sand that down while they're like learning. What as far as you guys said that the industry is lacking right now, and the skilled trades are lacking and everything else, do you have any involvement? I know that you have continued education and stuff like that on your website as far as getting people into the drywall trade, because let's just be honest, it's not something that I think most parents push on their kids. When you grow up, you want to be a drywaller, you want to be a drywall finisher, or this is the trade that you want to get into. I feel like it's one of those trades that nobody thinks that highly of. Is there anything that you guys are doing or you think that we could do to kind of make it more of a craft, or incentivize it for people to be joining that trade?
So, and this is just my personal experience when I was in the field up in Philadelphia, we had a great relationship with the finishing union in Philadelphia and their apprenticeship program. So we would donate as much material as we could every year in both mud and board, so they could work with the material, get to know it and understand it before they actually got out in the field and started doing it. And I know we had again, this was probably 3 years ago, and it's my own personal experience, so I don't know if I'm actually answering the question. But we had basically everybody came in, all the trainers came in from across the country in these union markets, and we did a large scale training with our products. So, but that was a kind of in a vacuum. I don't know that we're necessarily involved with some of the trade schools, which I think is probably what our next step should be if we want to kind of help this grow a little bit and kind of get back to the level of labor that we need in this market right now.
Yeah, so we spoke with a couple. We had the one guy on from Hawaii, and I think what's typical with a lot of people, the union I'm sure as well, are the carpenters hanging board and then the finishers finishing.
Yes.
Yeah. So you have the two different people coming in. It doesn't seem like a trade that's getting pushed on very many people. And I guess you think of the union, and that's definitely a larger scale, but it's super tough. I end up doing a lot of our own drywall because of the finishing and everything else and the schedule, and it's tough to find good people doing this. I would think that the union can pay a little bit more, and that would definitely incentivize getting into that. I just feel like it's one of those trades that's so hard to grow, and if it's not passed down within family or a small company, and I'm curious to see what that's going to look like, 10 years from now, 15 years from now. It's so hard to get somebody. No, but seriously, it's so hard to get people in to drywall and then finish.
Because it's straight work.
Yeah, it's not fun. It doesn't pay well. It is, but like
there's no coast. Like you got to put some work in.
So what's the next step? You guys have plasterers, but I feel like it's more of a trade or a craft where you have these people coming in and doing this. Is it always just going to be like the low hanging fruit, and that's gonna be it? You're gonna get people come in, charge a low rate, do a semi okay job, not clean up after themselves, or is there going to be some sort of change where people are going to, John, like you said, there's going to be somebody who's just as amped up to do demo as you are to do something else? Like, are those drywall guys going to be out there?
I also think there's a huge turnover.
Yeah.
People get into it, they test the waters, and they're like, whoa, not for me. My shoulders are burning just thinking about it.
That's like that guy up in Canada, PRC or whatever, and all he does is finish. And like, he's amazing to watch him finish. It's super talented. But I'm like, how the heck every day are you finishing drywall? And that's not a knock at it. I feel like that would be such a tough trade.
Yeah,
I think hanging it. There's guys that we have, like Diego's crew. There's one guy called the Machine. Man, they don't even speak. I've been surrounded by a couple crews lately that like we poured a foundation. I love being on a job site where no one's talking, and
they just know what to do.
It's just straight production, and it's not like the word production's kind of freaky because everyone goes to like, just straight square boxes and whatever. But I was around the form guys the other day, and it's just boom. And same with the Machine. There's like 4 guys. They don't even talk. They just look. The guy cutting just looks over his shoulder, like, and that's it. Like, because Machine's just basically taking like a cut off from the sheetrock blue board, and he writes like the next cut with the side of his cut off, so it's written on the sheetrock, and it's like boom. So the guy looks over, sees the measurement, starts cutting his next piece, and it's zero talking. I think they got a little bit of techno going, and it's like
definitely techno. Oh yeah,
really?
Yeah.
I feel like we've had a few trades that like all they do is listen to techno. And it's the same thing. They just work.
Boom. No mercy. But I love when they don't talk. It's just so much fun to see. Like, I'm like,
the one company I used always had like one finisher, and he would be running around or maybe they had 2, but I'd always see their one finisher, and he would come around and just, all right, his name was like Angel or something, and he would come around and finish. That's all he did every single day. Load his tools in and out of his car, have some stilts, just finish.
It's crazy. But that, it is. It's like, even, John, like your comment about production, it's like, how fast can they get bored up? How fast can they plaster walls? And it's like, then you have the other side of it where it's like, you have the guys that are trying to be more artistic with it, taking their time, slowing down, but I feel like that side of it's dying even faster.
I would love to see like the spread of COVID chart. I'd like to see that over like how plaster died across the U.S. Because as this whole ramp up of speed and production, it has probably just absolutely wiped out plaster. Any other spots that it was kind of living a little bit?
If plaster died, I don't know one person I could call for drywall.
Oh, dude.
I'm sure you could find.
I'm sure I could.
I feel like the other way, it's like if a couple of companies shut down for plaster, finding a good plaster guy would be impossible. I remember Marley was talking about it a lot for his project. It was like to find the right person, to vet the right person. Mm-hmm. It was a ton of work for him. And I felt like there's not a lot of times where you kind of like sigh and be like, well, I got a lot of people I can, go to. But
it's crazy. I came across a kid the other day, local, and he's a plasterer. And met up with him, and I'm chatting with him. He's 28 years old. Took over the company from his dad, and he wants to be the best. And he's the second person I've ever seen, use a 6 or 8 foot straight edge to flatten a wall with plaster. And I'm watching him do it. And I'm like, I messaged him right on it. I'm like, hey, can I swing by one of your jobs? I'm like, we gotta chat. Because like it's like I love the fact that he's a young kid, that his father, he took it over, and he didn't take it over because he needed to. He took it over because he genuinely wanted to.
Yeah.
And it's like,
you can tell, because most people would simplify that process to be dummy down,
right,
instead of what he's doing.
Right. And we chatted for a while, and he's like, I just, it's tough. I compete with guys that can do it faster than me. And, and the quality,
but the experience comes, speed comes to a level.
But it's like, it's that's the competition, and it becomes speed, and then it becomes the level of expectation for what a flat wall or flat ceiling is, simplified or dumbed down. So it's like, there's so many things working against that kid from actually becoming who he wants to be. Yeah,
but the sky is the limit for him.
Sure.
Like, there is no ceiling for him. Like, if he wants to just go.
I think it is, but I could be wrong, but I also feel like there's a big difference between what he's doing and drywall.
100%.
Yeah.
Like, for me, if I could get a drywaller that did drywall work where it came in and we didn't need to touch up, and we didn't need to a certain extent, but they cleaned up after themselves, they showed up when they wanted to, I would be willing to pay them a higher price than a standard drywall guy and finisher, right? Because it's making my life easier. I'm not having to clean up. I'm not having to touch up prior to primer and then prime and then touch up again after that. But it's just there's such little respect for that trade and that craft at that point that everyone's just like, hey, it's drywall, get it done for as fast as you can, for as cheap as you can. You don't have to clean up after yourself. And it's such a, like, we talk about it being a price-driven industry. That is such a price-driven trade that people are straight up shopping that. Well, I can get so-and-so to do it for this dollar amount per board. And nobody's giving anyone an opportunity to step up and become like an artist or create a trade, or be a tradesman with their drywalling. It's about that number, which is why, I asked John from National Gypsum, like, what can be done to kind of spearhead or lead the charge in like this industry and what you're doing, because it just seems like there's such a cap on it, which I don't think there's necessarily an answer to. It seems like a tough market to be in, where there's a ceiling there.
Yeah, that's good, because I don't have an answer.
No, and I don't. I kind of started the conversation with that, and it seems as if there's, so background on me, like, I have a small company. I don't want to do a ton of work. We're very low volume. I want to be a higher profit. I want to offer somebody a better experience, a better product, a better quality. So that's my angle on selling stuff. We're just not selling a high volume. I want people to hire us because they want us to do the work. And I need to find ways that I can differentiate myself and distinguish myself from what other people are doing. And I think that your industry, it's so much tougher to do that from a product position, but also from a labor and trades position. Like, what more can you offer than grid marks and the soundboard and what you've already given to it? Maybe you lower your carbon footprint so that if people buy your board, it has less environmental impact, but that still doesn't help, like, the trade and the craft of your industry.
Right, so I think they're two separate conversations, right? So we on the onset, I think relationships are the backbone of our business. That's what's given us the ability to grow and to get into the markets that we're into, and it's based on our ability to get product to you, and also our ability to kind of back you up on the other side of it, and help somebody that's new with hey, you can't put this sound break on this assembly, you have to put this sound break on this assembly. I think our commitment that way is above and beyond, and it's what brings us to the next level, and it's what gives us the advantage, right? And there's the service piece of it, right? And then in terms of getting new people in, I think that's that's the magic question. And I think that's what everyone's been talking about for what I've been in this business for 7 years, which is not a long time, but I think it's in every business right now. It's how do you attract how do you attract more people? And I think I don't think there's an easy answer. I guess it probably sounds like a cop out, but I don't think there's an easy answer to it. And
No, I don't think that there is either, but I am glad that it kind of, the initial part of your conversation, where you're talking about it's the relationships that make the difference. I don't necessarily, like, that's 100% true, and it's the first time that, like, you kind of just open my eyes to the fact that you can have a comparable product, right? There's only so many ways that you can reinvent yourself, but you guys are relying on your customer relationships, your relationships with vendors, your relationships with the union on the forefront of your product, and to get this product in people's hands, but then you're also backing it. And it's as you mentioned earlier on, that you're not just backing it for National Gypsum, you guys are backing it for anyone who has questions. And that for me answers it and kind of is the telltale sign. And it's the same thing as why people ask me why I use a lumberyard that's more expensive.
Sure.
And sometimes it's for the exact same product that I can get for another lumberyard, but it comes down to the end of the day that it is the relationship, that I know they're going to back it, that I know that if something gets screwed up with delivery, they're going to make it right, sight unseen. And that does make such a huge difference in our industry, those relationships. And I feel like that kind of comes full circle with this. And it's a good note for us to kind of put our stamp on this conversation, that you guys are doing what you need to establish and maintain those relationships from the life cycle of your product.
Yeah, I think that's accurate, and I think that's what our goal is, right? It's a tough business, but we don't, we can be respectful of each other, right? And I think that's kind of how we approach as long as we're fair, through the relationship, customer to customer, and customer to vendor, and I think it's a two-way street, and that's always the way that we approach it.
I think that's important, and to build on that, for contractors or homeowners or anyone that wants to dig into this. I guess it's more so like we're talking to a lot of trades here on this platform, where it's like to educate yourself. Obviously, we kind of dabbled with the website. You guys can't see that, but you guys have all that information on the website. But what is the best course of action? Is it becoming I don't know, I'm making this up, a purple partner? Is it becoming, a preferred vendor? You just wrote that down. You're like, hey, that sounds great. Yeah, he's like, hey, guys,
I was like, wait, that's not in my notes.
Let's launch purple partner, guys. 2%. That's it. That's all I need. But what is the best way to get involved with someone? Let's just talk about you guys, National Gypsum.
Sure.
How can if I want to educate myself and I want to be the best at what I can do, what is
you
the
want to be a
best way
purple
to do
partner?
that? I want to be a purple partner
With Bob. So yeah, I think it's great. I think you can, we've talked about all the websites that we can go to that we have all of our content on, but we also we're active in the field, or we're as active as we can be right now in the field and on job sites. So we're not, we've never been afraid to get out on the job site and talk you through a problem. We'll call the 800 national guys ourselves while we're out in the field to help you through something. I mean, that's how you start building the relationship, and whether that's through, as a contractor through your distributor, or if you just calling us yourself with a question through 1-800 National. I think we have several different avenues to meet up and to start kind of working with each other. And I think that's the thing. I mean, especially in this, with all the social media that's out there. I mean, we're on everything, and quite frankly, we answer the phone, and that's to me, I think it's the simplest thing that we do that sets us apart. We answer the phone and we return phone calls. So we're happy to engage about anything, and it doesn't have to be, just whether or not we're selling you purple or not, right? So we'll talk to you about anything that we do.
So usually we ask for a website or a handle, but since you threw it out there, what's the phone number?
It's 1-800-NATIONAL.
That's it? How'd you guys
That's
get that?
easy.
Man, that's good.
That's
You have that memorized?
look. It's I'm in this job for a year now, and I just got it.
Bob taught him.
It's a steel trap.
So I mean,
it's more than just the product, right? Like it's
Sure.
gotta be at the end of the day.
Absolutely, and that's not to get sentimental, but I moved my family down here because this is a great company to work for. It's a bunch of good people, and I wouldn't do it just for any company, just for a job, right? It's the people that you work with, and you have to go there every day and know that everybody else is working as hard as you are.
That's awesome, man. Well, this was awesome. I appreciate you being on.
Yeah, thanks, guys. I appreciate it as well. It's been great.
What time is it down in Charlotte?
7:47.
Same time as it is here.
Yeah.
No, it's cool to see you guys innovating and aware of how you guys can improve, and just talking to companies directly like this is important, because I feel like a lot of us might get lost in the fact that you guys are just selling a product, but to know that you're looking out for the end user, trying to make it easier for us to work with, but also aware of the environmental issues that lead to or that are created with construction, and how we can be a part of the solution, and that's sending all of the scraps to Tyler to patch his walls.
Farming,
yes.
I also think it's just foolish that we always think that we can add value to our brand and our company by building science or windows or some sort of design. I always joke with my clients, and I don't joke, but it's like it's baked into the budget that we're gonna put soundproofing in the bathroom walls, and like it's solid core doors. And the example I always give is like, you ever go over to someone's house and you use the powder room and you feel like the entire first floor is listening to you take a leak
Or
so
fart.
Yeah, whatever it is, but it's like going on your websites and seeing what all the products are. Just knowing that it's going to take you 45 minutes to an hour to do a deep dive in your website to educate yourself that when there's a baby or whatever it is, that you can then use a product that about that's offset, there's price points that you can make that happen and add value to you and the project. Why wouldn't you just jump on a website, dive into that, and then use that in the next 7 projects? And that's how you gain value for your client.
I mean, also bringing the value of a company who, like John said, will answer the phone. And it's
That's
the
huge.
same thing with any of our vendors. Like, I would venture to say that not a single one of us are going in and, giving them, hey, this is going to be the least expensive option because of this. We're not necessarily upselling because of quality of product all the time. A lot of times it's quality of experience or a warranty or a service. And I think that it's just as important to bring a team of vendors to your job as it is a collection of products.
But dude, what gets me is the 3 o'clock, voices in my head. This can give a peace of mind, meaning basement renovations, whatever is small scale, large scale, bathrooms, that you're going to do that mold, resistant stuff that really changes the game for when it's like, what? I'm just going to hold my drywall up an inch off the floor. You'll be fine. Like, that's not going to do it.
Right. Well, that's a great point. I mean, it gives you the option to just kind of, hey, you weren't thinking about the drywall, but we were, right?
Yep.
I mean, it's a great piece just to, and you're not going to sell the job based on the drywall, but it's another thing that you're going to be able to say to your customer that shows them that you care about them a little bit.
That's one of those things that you say when you're doing it. Like, hey, you didn't ask about this, but check this out. And then out of all the things that someone will repeat over a glass of wine, over a cookout, whenever they have those again, is that like, dude, you're not going to believe what these guys do.
Dude, imagine doing that and then pulling out a baseball bat and smacking the wall with it. Like, you didn't tell them that you were going to put that in their kids' playroom. Then you're like, wait, check this out. And then you just go out to your truck, grab a bat, and smack the drywall. Then you're like, awesome. All right, cool.
And it's Bob's written on it.
Yeah.
John, we didn't get to the one leering question that you have in your build, we all have in our builds is screw pops.
Oh.
And before we hang up on John here, let's talk about screw pops.
So I texted them. I was like, "Can we talk about screw pops?"
Yeah, I feel like I've figured out what screw pops are.
Lay it on me.
What is it?
It's lumber shrinking.
Is it framing too fast? Are we moving
moisture content?
Anytime that I've ever go ahead. Sure, you have the
yeah, I think to your point, I think it's young lumber, and I think it's conditioning of a house. I think there are a lot of things that go into it, but to your point, when lumber dries out a little bit, I mean, that doesn't take much.
Yeah, I mean,
young lumber. I'm gonna use young lumber.
I've never heard anyone call it lumber young.
Come on, guys.
Any issues I've had?
Give me those youngins.
We're adding lumber to old houses, where we're going into doing a single space and we're not demoing it. And I'll have nail pops. I've had it where we did a bathroom and we framed up a wall just for the valve to be housed. And on the back side, the not tiled side, I had nail pops or screw pops there, but I didn't have them anywhere else in the bathroom where it was the original lumber. And at that point, it's just something with the lumber, whether conditioning it or it being too young at that point. Moisture content being off. John, when you guys frame a house, you're drying them in quicker than ever, but they're still getting wet and then constantly drying out and aging as you build the house, and things are shrinking. And I think it's just at that point the screws staying in place and the wood's moving.
I think you have to monitor it. I mean, I've been monitoring mine for years now, and it's made a huge difference. I just feel like a lot of screw pops I was seeing, if I were to nail it down, was always staircases.
Because of the two-story framing.
Yeah.
I think it was like basement going up the stairs, so like we don't have doors and stuff. Mm-hmm. I would see it a lot there. So a couple years ago, we started, gluing the drywall or the blue board to the studs and then screwing them in. And that did it, and then we forgot to do it. And
I mean, I glue everything, and on our new lumber, we still get our young lumber. We still get pops. Not as many. Like, we are able to resolve a lot of the issues with that. I also work at a slow enough pace that things are pretty dried out by the time we get to them. But it's definitely a framing issue.
What about Sorry, Nick, go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say, John, like, what is, if someone calls you with that,
yeah. So we get the question, like, we call it nail pop season, because our director of quality will send out the the talking points about nail pops, right? And it's generally environmental, right? So especially in a lot of track houses, when you're finishing a house, and those guys are finishing a house, the heat's not on, it's not conditioned, and if you're finishing a house now, they're gonna pop in the spring. It's gonna happen. And that's just the way that construction goes. Sometimes they're better than others, but it's a lot to do, to Tyler's point, with the shifting of the lumber and kind of the way that we're working with.
Yeah, there's really no steps to help prevent it, other than trying to get the environment within the home conditioned as soon as possible. Because usually with plaster, we're doing it, depending on the year, I guess. I mean, the time of year, I think we're traditionally doing it right after plaster. Well,
conditioning it.
No, we're conditioning it before board.
Yeah.
Or it's just like even getting your walls in, getting everything dried out in the first place. Like, if you're moving that quickly on those tract houses, they're framing and drying them in, and typically they're using Tyvek and all that stuff on them, so they're not even wrapping it immediately. So everything's getting super saturated, and then they're passing inspections, insulating, and closing things in before anything has a chance to kind of season or dry out. I think the slower you
But I think those people that are looking for that product don't know. It's just expected.
Yeah.
Like, you're not going to go to your neighbor's house and go, "Oh, their walls are perfectly smooth." I think everybody has them at that point.
Yeah.
Where it's just par for the course.
Can I tell you guys my favorite nail pop story ever? I wasn't going to, but I think I should.
Yeah.
So
is Bob involved?
No, this is all me. So I went to this house. I got a call out, and it was a beautiful house on like a river. It was like 5,000 square feet. It was down in southern Delaware. And I get out to the house, and every single nail was popped in the entire house. Like, you can't even make it up. It looked like the whole thing was polka dot. And I couldn't figure out what was going on. And I'm like, I finally get to a door jamb that they pulled out, and there was like this piece of plastic between the drywall and the stud. And I was like, what is this? And the guy's like, oh, it's like an insulation that you put under the ceiling of a barn to help with the noise. And I was like, is it behind all your walls? And he was like, yeah. And so you push the wall, and it was basically like bubble wrap behind his walls, and it was just bouncing. Everything was bouncing. The whole thing, and there was nothing we could do. I felt terrible for the guy. I was like, this is not to code. This is.
They put it over
so
all
the entire house
wall.
had to be ripped out. All the walls had to be pulled out.
That's terrible.
Everything. He had a friend who was like some kind of sound technician or something and recommended it. And I was like, did he recommend it to be attached to the studs or just like somewhere else? Because I felt bad.
That's horrible.
So that was the worst nail pop house I'd ever seen in my life.
Yeah, I mean, so even when we install drywall, I like habitually don't screw around switch plate, like outlets, or even around light fixtures, because like a sconce or a box, I won't put screws there, because if things loosen up and then the electrician comes in at the end of the job to trim out and everything's painted, and they pull like the switch plate cover too tight, and then it pops the screws or pops the nails at that point because something shrunk some like little tricks to get away from that, where it's like, don't screw around any switch plate or outlet, an outlet where you have somebody like jamming something in and out all the time. Just don't screw near that, because it's inevitable that something's going to shrink, or you're going to have a hollow spot where you put on your adhesive. But if you put basically some sort of paper or plastic that has give, everything's going to pop.
Oh, yeah.
Like any pressure you put on
bouncing.
it. That's terrible.
Yeah.
Dang.
Lesson learned.
Yeah. See
I'm
that?
going to have to pull all that stuff out of my my room that I'm doing right now.
All right, man.
All right, guys. Well, you can find everything that I just said on nationalgypsum.com.
There you go. Or 1-800-NATIONAL.
Or call 1-800-NATIONAL.
Cool, man.
All right, guys. Awesome.
well.
Thank you so
Thanks
much.
so much.
Thanks, dude.
Take care.
Take it easy.
We got a handful of reviews on iTunes this
Whoa.
week.
Boom.
Yeah. I don't know if I can read them all, but I'll give it a whirl. I'll read a
Whirl.
couple. If you get a whirl, if you guys want to leave a review, make sure you do it on iTunes. Let us know how we're doing. Keep us in the top spot for our industry-leading podcast. But if you guys want to give us some feedback, we get that link on our Instagram, the Perry Modern Craftsman, the Survey Monkey. And John is currently scrolling through. You guys have dumped in a ton of guest suggestions, which have been great. A few of you guys have reached out with some Mike Rowe connections. Really appreciate that. We have to put our best words forward in a nice email that will hopefully make it to Mike.
As I said, we got the pen of beauty.
Yeah.
Pen of beauty, and Nick's like, what are you talking about?
Yeah, I didn't catch
I
it.
sent you the definition.
But yeah, he did. Instead of just telling me, he looked it up and then sent me the link. Dick. So don't stop, Modern Craftsman Nation. Keep hitting up Mike Rowe. I think we should maybe reach out to his foundation, the Mike Rowe Foundation.
Mike Rowe Works.
Mike Rowe Works.
We're working on getting his address so everyone can just go knock on his door.
Oh my gosh, that might be an issue. So I got this one I wanted to read. I wanted to not listen. I wanted to just have this on as noise in the background, and I wanted to say, yeah, I listened to the show that you recommended without lying. But this is so much more. If you're a craftsperson in any real trade, this is really going to put your heart at ease knowing that there is a large group of people that are mercilessly. Man, you guys write some big words. I struggle with them. Pursuing the highest quality standards in everything they do. Episode 139 put me over the edge of inspiration, and I can absolutely emphasize what's going on in Nick's head now. Keep it up, fellers.
I was listening to a podcast. I know we always say we don't know what the reviews do, but they just help people find us.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That's what somebody said. At least I heard it. I don't know if it's true or not, but they
do.
help people find us.
Oh, absolutely. It keeps us in the ranking. It lets, when people are, it also, however the algorithm works, right? It's like it's going to be shown to people that are in the trade. So the more you guys drop a review and a comment, it's incredibly helpful.
Yeah, I think when other people listen to a podcast and then they scroll down to what's recommended, that's how we get pushed forward.
I'll read one more. Guys, your podcast has taken me through some tough times and some good times. I find myself relating to the questions you pose and the struggles you share. I've especially appreciated the last year's worth of episodes. I feel like I always walk away with a discovery about myself or the industry that I can put to work. Not just some cerebral epiphany or actual practical action that I can quantify. Thanks for letting us all into your world and for enlarging the world with great appearances from true craftsmen and visionaries.
I think Maui said it best. You're
what?
welcome. You know that movie?
I love Moana. John's kids are too old for Moana.
Yeah.
It's a great movie.
No,
I always just send my wife that GIF of Maui saying
"Oh
you're
yeah,
welcome,"
yeah,
all the time.
I send her. I think they're gifts, but I send them to her all the time. She never reciprocates.
Really?
Like doesn't even acknowledge them.
Maybe
I'm
try
like,
sending her a GIF and see what happens.
I'll try.
Dude,
that.
for years you used to send me that, and I'm like, what are you doing?
But you would always be like, how do you know how to get them so quickly?
Like so quickly, and I'm like, this is ridiculous. And
Because
I
I'm
remember
just like, instead of writing back sounds good, I'm just gonna go to my GIF search and find something that says sounds good. Whatever, John.
someone
My
commented.
electrician sends them for some reason all the time to me, and they're always so funny.
Does he send like the Home Alone guy getting shocked and electrocuted?
He sends he sends ones that you wouldn't find yourself. He also, when he signs off of text messages, puts like the lightning bolt symbol. I'm like, yes,
amazing.
This is awesome.
I had a roofer hit me up the other day. I'm like, hey, is that crew gonna make it this weekend? And he sent me like the McDonald's guy going like double thumbs down, and I wanted to reach through the phone and strangle him. Okay, like I was like, you could have said no, but instead you sent me that thing.
Ronald.
Yeah, Ronald, double thumbs down with the
Who
big
says
like.
the McDonald's guy? That's
I don't know
the
what's
bigger
called.
question.
All I can imagine is like John's like face when he's reading that in his truck, beat red,
Getting Ronald McDonald.
throwing his phone on the dashboard, and then calling, Benny, is this guy serious?
I was walking around. I was with people, and I looked at my phone. I was like, "Are you serious with this? This is how you're gonna break it to me."
Response to every group text. No, from now on, Ronald double thumbs down.
Definitely. I'm gonna save that in my favorites.
Someone gave us flack for putting the ad and plug in the middle of the Icon podcast interrupted the flow.
Oh man,
I have no problem with a plug. Just place it more naturally.
I thought that was.
Yeah.
Fair enough.
Have to work on it.
Well, till next week. Oh, who do we got next week? I'm pretty sure I know. Let me just double check here.
What's your guess? What's your
I think it's Aaron Witt
Oh.
from Build Witt.
Oh yeah.
It is. So next week we got Aaron Witt, BuildWitt, WITT.com. Pretty cool company he's got going on. It's a media group traveling the entire nation, highlighting dirt guys, site guys, landfills, big equipment.
The content's like awesome.
Yeah, I mean he's got a puff, he's got a D-Rock.
I think they have a red camera too. Like,
I know.
No joke.
I sent that to Doug. He's like, we don't need a red. I'm like, everyone keeps telling me we should get a red. He's like, we don't need a red. I'm like, I'm gonna listen to you.
What's a red?
It's like a no joke camera.
Filthy camera.
Is it just a brand or is it?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, it's a
actually
brand.
Red?
No,
So
it's a brand.
hey, some other comments.
Yeah.
More women.
We
Agreed.
got one coming up.
We do, yeah. But we need more. Like, honestly,
do.
the ratio is awful on this podcast.
Listen. All right, here we go. If you guys can't get in touch with Mike Rowe, get us in touch with some good women that are in the industry, any craft. Like literally, we want to expand this thing into any craft.
Yep.
So if you guys have someone that we should be talking to, dump it into that Survey Monkey and we will reach out. This podcast is brought to you by Duration Moulding and Millwork. Now it's even easier to access our full line of standard poly-ash moldings and beveled siding products in New England and the Middle Atlantic region, thanks to our expanded stocking levels at both Wolf Home Products and U.S. lumber distribution facilities. Just ask for Duration by name at your favorite lumberyard in these areas. No lead time issues, no price increases, made with pride in America. To learn more about Duration Polyash products, please visit their website at durationmillwork.com.